Hmm.
Welcome back to Podex. Our guest for today is Mana Patel. Mana Patel is one of India's best swimmers. She has represented the country in the Asian Age Group Games and the South Asian Games, and she has also represented India in the recently concluded 2020 Olympics. And it's going to be a really fun conversation because we are going to dive into her mindset and learn so much from her. So, Mana, thank you so much for joining in.
Hi, Ayush. Thank you so much for having me. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of fun chatting.
Okay. So, I wanted to like dive into it straight to it. You spoke about this on your TED talk also. I wanted to know how do athletes have that mindset, or how do you have that mindset to continuously keep on moving and going ahead? Because like what happened in your TED talk, you said that you had a shoulder injury once and you felt like you just got back up, you took a break because you were forced to take a break because your doctor advised you, and as soon as that ended, you came back up and you started fighting again, and then you were back in the pool practicing every day and trying to work hard.
Yes, it's so I've been swimming for the last 11 years. I've been into competitive swimming since 2010. And yeah, I started off because I really enjoyed swimming as a sport. Nobody from my family decided or ever forced me that you have to do this. You have to go to workout today. I remember as a child, like when I was like 10, 11 years old, I'd always be at the pool 15 minutes before my time, and I was never late. Like hardly, okay, maybe some few exceptional cases, but I'd always, even at 5 in the morning, I'd be there at 4:45. I'll be sitting, then I'll do my warm up and then jump into the pool. So I was very, very eager to swim. Like I used to maintain a file and I used to write down everything that I learned. Obviously because I was new to the sport. So I enjoyed it. Swimming's always been my passion, and yes, it is a very monotonous sport. Every day you get up, you swim 5-6 kilometers per session, just up and down the pool. It's a very, very monotonous sport, and I don't think there has been any drastic change in my routine since then, since 2010. I mean, I follow like a very, very, very similar routine. And yes, there are days where I don't feel like getting up in the morning, especially in winters, like I don't want to get the job done. But that's when I actually push myself, it's like just get up and go, get the job done. And once you push yourself, even if you don't want to do it, and the satisfaction that you get after achieving, I think you just feel so good about yourself. And swimming makes me good about myself. I enjoy it, and I think I belong there. It makes me happy.
You know why I think you get that satisfaction? I'm not sure. Maybe I may be wrong also, but this is like I think it helps you form a self discipline first of all, and then you find that you've already achieved it. It's very rewarding. Like for me, I started like I told you this before on call also, where before I used to not do anything much, and then I used to sleep late at night and all, and then I kind of got into this routine of waking up early, doing home exercises and all that stuff. And I'll tell you this, I used to hate waking up in the morning and doing those exercises. But I used to wake up in the morning and do those exercises. After I was done with the exercises, I was excited for the next day. And then again, when the next day came, I hated it again for that 2 hours period. But then it did help me develop that self discipline, that thing. And then seeing that as a reward that the self discipline was having an impact on my life and things around
Yeah.
me, I think that gave me that satisfaction.
Exactly. I think the feel good factor about yourself, and the fact that you have a structured routine, like you're doing, everything in life has its own time, as I've mentioned before. Like doing things properly in an organized manner. I think it's all about it makes me happy. It makes me feel like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. Like at least for myself.
But I'm very curious about how do you think one can develop self discipline?
Like if you can't develop it by yourself, then I'd say you should have people around you who would push you, who'd motivate you to take up certain extracurricular activities or certain hobbies that keep you kind of stable. As in, apart from going to school, college, and tuitions, like you should have something else as well. Like a me time. As you can call it, a me time, where you could read a book, or where you could take up a sport or do something, play a instrument. So I think it's very important. Like my parents always pushed me, I've always been a very very creative child. So even if you can't find that, if you can't discipline yourself, maybe you should take help from your parents and get a nice routine for yourself.
Yeah, I think that is like very important, because then it provides a sense of clarity in, knowing what you want to do and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what role has it played in like all of this? How did it help you in reaching you to the path to Olympics? Because that's one of the most biggest things, and you've made the country proud.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do something. I've always been a very hyper kid. I don't like settling for less. Like I just like to, better. Like I want to be a better version of myself in the end. Like I want to be better than what I was yesterday. And I've been like this, like a child. No matter what I do, I want to be really good at it. Otherwise I won't do it. So I'm like that. And also, like it's what's it called? Yeah, when I started winning, I was like, okay, now I'm really good at swimming. Maybe I should, focus. And then started thinking that, okay, I want to represent my country at the Olympics and I really want to bring laurels to the nation. So that's what. And other thing is, like, so many people tell me that do are you're missing out on life. There are certain things, your friends are doing that you aren't doing, like going out on holidays, partying, staying up till late. Yes, that's like a small price that you have to pay if you want to do something extraordinary. But again, like, you don't have to be devoid of all these things. You could find a balance somewhere. You could, okay, yeah, maybe you don't go out every single weekend, but you could go out maybe 1 or 2 weekends in a month. I mean, there's no harm in it. So, like, having a balanced life is also very important for an athlete. But at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to say it again, like everything in life has its time. Like I believe that if I'm not going to be swimming at the age of 40, like if I've taken this sport, then I have to give it my 100% because this is my time to perform. And I'm at the peak right now. So I might as well do it properly, put aside most of the things, everything, whatever's required, give my everything. And yes, once I retire, I can do whatever the hell I want to in life. I'll have that satisfaction. I'll know that yes, the work is done and I can go and enjoy now, time to do something else. So that's what goes on in my head.
But like, I wanted to know this thing, which is you spoke about this really interesting thing that you continuously focus on your work, and that is what helps you develop and grow every time. But how do you cancel out the noises, while you're practicing, while you're swimming at the race and all? There will be people who will be saying good stuff. There'll be saying people who will be saying bad stuff about you. How do you? People are saying maybe her form isn't good. She doesn't deserve to be there. How do you cancel out all the negatives and all?
I mean, one thing, like the downtime, your downtime, when you're at your lowest, you end up learning so much, you evolve that's when you actually, you mature. So when I was injured, there were so many people who doubted me. They're like, okay, she's not coming back, like Mana's gone now, she can't make a comeback. And there were so many people, just for the sake of it, because I was injured and they just wanted to say something. Is like, okay, maybe, you should do this, but they never meant it, they just wanted to say something. So one thing I've realized is that people are going to talk no matter what you do, good or bad. They are always going to have an opinion, like people do talk, you ultimately you have to live in a society. You can't isolate yourself from everyone, right? So all you can do is just cancel out the noise. That's when I realized that people who matter to me are my parents, my coaches, and maybe one or two of my close friends. But apart from that, like whoever's gonna come and tell me, like, Mana, you should do this, do that. Okay, I listen to it, but I'm not gonna inculcate it unless it's gonna help me swim faster. Are you gonna, like, if X person says something to me, if it's not gonna help me swim faster, why should I waste my time and energy behind that person or dwell on whatever he says and feel bad or feel good, whatever? Like, why should I waste my emotions on that person? Not required. Like, I'm here to do something different. I'm here to achieve my goals. And if people are gonna just talk, I'm gonna get distracted. So you have to put your blinders on and get the work done and have a very very small circle. That's what I've realized. I mean, yes, people, everyone is different. I'm not trying to compare. Like, some people like to have like 100 people as their friends. Like, I am someone who believes in a very, very close circle, less drama, less noise.
No, I think I wanted to add two things to this actually. First, there's this person called Gary Vee. He's a very, very famous entrepreneur. I think you might have heard of him. Have you heard of Gary Vee?
Mhm.
Yeah. So Gary also always talks about it is you shouldn't let the good parts or the bad parts affect you. So if you're doing too well and you get a lot of compliments, even that shouldn't get in your head, nor should the negatives get into your head. So that way, when you're neutral, nothing can stop you. Because some people may have that when they get a lot of compliments and all, they think that they're really good and they feel they're better than themselves others, versus when they get a lot of negative comments, they feel that they are less than others. So if you don't let either of it affect you, then you can like move the fastest and the best way. That's what Gary says about.
Exactly. That's very true. Like, you should find a middle ground. You should not like heighten anything up. Like, you should find a middle ground and stick to it.
Okay. Another thing which you spoke about, having a group of friends, like you said, I feel, yeah, a right group of friends can really help you and motivate you to do better. Like, I'll tell you this, when I started out with podcasts, obviously I've not done very great. My podcast numbers aren't huge, but because of the podcast, I get to know a lot of amazing people, such as you. Like, I get to talk to personalities, I get to learn from them and all. And when I started out the podcast, I started in the 10th grade, and a lot of people were telling me, why are you starting this in 10th grade? There are board exams, there's this and that. You shouldn't be doing it. And in fact, before I started a podcasting YouTube channel, I had a fluffy motivational talk YouTube channel. So, Gary Vee puts out these motivational talks. So I was putting that out. But then I realized that, it's actually stupid because I haven't achieved it and all. But the worst part was I said it all in a fake accent and I put down that video. So a lot of people in the school made fun of it. And then for like I was trolled for it and all. There was a meme account made for it and all. And I had that setback kind of. And then these people closest to me, they were like, don't worry, you should start this podcasting thing if you're really passionate about it. If you enjoy it, we will support you. And initially, I'll tell you this, I didn't get a lot of support from other people. Like my parents supported me. These friends, you should, if you go back to my older YouTube videos, they would always comment something positive, something nice, something happy. Even if it was a bad video, they would just comment something positive to, boost that up to make me feel better. And I think, like you said, surrounding yourself with the right people, if they are there around like the right people, then they can really push you to move to the next level.
Exactly. I mean, it's actually good. You were in 10th grade, there were board exams around the corner. You had to study, but again, you had the courage to think out of the box and do something, use your own brain and do something. Not many people can do that, right? Let your classmates make fun of you. It's fine. Of course, you were at an age where you were bound to feel very up, yes, you get really hurt when your classmates troll you, make memes on you. It's very hurtful. But then think about it, like you did this yourself. You got this idea at in 10th standard. There are very few people who watch motivational videos who have the urge to learn, and you had it. That's amazing. Like, a lot of them just they're hooked onto video games and movies and stuff, which is not bad either, but you were doing something different. Be proud of that. It's amazing.
What's the
That's good.
funny part? A lot of people now approach me for that kind of help. So they will actually ask me because of the people I know. Some of them kind of like ask me to like, if I can connect them with them. And so, obviously I would love to. I would love to help them out. But there are times I can't connect them with everyone because of their high profiles and all. But it's funny, like it did change because I noticed a completely different perspective, which was back then versus now the perspective that they have about me. So I wanted to like ask you, have you noticed these different perspectives along your journey?
I did. I mean, I can give you this one example. So when I was in school, like when I was in third, fourth grade, that time, now my father's sole entrepreneur. He's a sole proprietor. Back then, he used to work for a company. He used to do a job. So when I was in school, all my friends, after exams, they would make plans to go out. They'd make plans, like holidays and vacations. And there were times like when my father, he couldn't take like family vacations. He couldn't take days off, and we couldn't join my friends group. We couldn't join the group, and I'd feel left out. Like, I'd feel really bad. like yes, no one would bully me or anything, but they'd, like obviously if they're in a group, if we're in a group, they'll talk about it, and I'll just simply be listening to what they're going to do at the holiday. They come back, they again talk about it, and I'll just feel so left out. Like they travel so much, and I'd always think, when will I get to travel, when will I get to go out? And when I started swimming, believe it or not, I'm never in town. I'm always traveling, I'm always racing, I'm representing my country. So I think, that's like the cherry on top, traveling and representing your country, racing international. So, that's how the time has changed for me. So yeah, my friends were never mean or anything, but yeah, they'd kind of, yeah, I was always on a schedule. I'd not hardly attend parties, hardly attend New Year's. So they'd kind of exclude me from the group, but that's okay. I mean, they were young as well, like, they were kids, but that happens. But yeah, this is one of the things that kind of has, changed now.
Yeah, but that cherry on the thing is also huge for our country because, like, when we look at you, when I heard about you at the Olympics, it was like a sense of pride that she is, especially it was better for me because, like, both of us are Gujaratis and Gujaratis aren't really looked up as athletes. And, when I was like,
Yeah.
firstly, even, I'm going to be honest with you. When I read your name, I was like, wait, is this Patel? Is it Gujarati for sure? So I read your name again because like the other people have a perception that Gujaratis can't be athletes. Even I had that it's hard to find. Only in cricket we see a lot of Gujarati athletes, and that's like a sense of pride for even Gujaratis. So all of us.
Thank you. I mean, I do care a lot. Like when I first won my nationals, when I became the fastest backstroker of the country at 13, everyone was like zapped. He was like, "Dokla fafda khane wale kahan se aa gaye abhi?" So, it was a shock to everyone. But yeah, I guess, I mean, Gujaratis have it in them if they want to do it.
I want. What was your experience like in when you won and became the fastest backstroker swimmer of India? What was it like? At such a young age, obviously. 13 is like very, very young.
I didn't know what it meant, honestly. I had no clue what it meant. I mean, I still remember this is like one of the most memorable races of my life. It was in Hyderabad Junior Nationals, and I had my 100 backstroke on the first day. I finished, and then there's a huge roar from the crowd that I hear. And I'm looking at the stands, and everyone's giving me a standing ovation, hooting and clapping. So I was just looking at them and smiling. I was like, okay, maybe something good happened. That came first. Then I go out of the pool, and then my coach is in tears, both my coaches. And there's like, I'm surrounded by a lot of camera people, and people are coming to congratulate. I'm like, "Sir, are you okay? What happened?" I'm like, "How much did I clock?" He's like, "You're the fastest 100 backstroker in the country now. It's like the Indian best performance." I was like, "Okay, I think that's big, right?" So, because I was so new to the sport, I started competitive swimming in 2010 October, and 2013 I became I got this title, and then I was like, "That's amazing!" I came back, and then Modi ji used to be a CM back then, so he tweeted for me. He congratulated me. Then Sachin Tendulkar also congratulated. So I didn't have Twitter back then, but I just wanted to go and check the tweet. So I made a very I made an account on Twitter. I like at most stupidest picture as my profile picture. Just wanted to check the tweet. So yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah,
Felt
I
good.
don't think that you're using that Twitter anymore because like I was searching for your Twitter account to send you a message there, but then I found a very old one. So I wasn't sure if you're
So
using it because there are no followers also. I don't think too many people follow it. So it wasn't verified. Correct.
I just made that account back in 2013 just to see those tweets, and after that I don't even remember the password. I never used it.
But like, what was your best experience of swimming? Like, in terms of your best memory, I would say, not even experience, like your fun memory, I would say, maybe the one which you really enjoy when you look back.
Not one, actually. I have plenty, as in it's just a feel, like there's nothing new. Swimming training is very monotonous. You just swim like a couple of kilometers per day and you're done. But the fact that you get to meet so many people along with, like, when you race international, you compete, you get to meet so many people from different countries. You become friends with them, you get to know about their culture, their country. It's beautiful. So this is like one good part about the sport. It connects you with a lot of people all over the world. Like I can say now, I think I have like one friend each all over everywhere, so it's very nice. It's a good feeling to connect to different people, different kinds of people.
Okay, I kind of changed the question. Do you have like any funny memory of swimming?
Funny. Funny. Oh, yeah, I have. It's funny and painful at the same time. But in 2014, we had my nationals in Bhopal, and it was raining. And there's this small pool, like where I was swimming down. So after my race, all of us, after racing, everybody swims down, slow swimming just to get rid of that lactic acid. So what happened? It was pouring, and I was facing the wall. Then I turned around and I see like a water polo ball in. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
I saw a water polo ball and that just, came at me. It hit me and like I had a small concussion for some time. I was taken to the hospital. I was given two injections. I was crying and because of the injections, my bums were like super, super sore and painful. But the next day I came and I got the record in 50 meters freestyle. Like my coach was like, it's okay, don't swim, like you're in pain and freestyle is anyways not your stroke. Just fine, just give it some rest and you can race day after, focus on your backstroke. I'm like, no, I'm fine, I'll swim. I got the national record in that as well. So I think that's very funny at this. I mean, I think it's funny. So
I think it's like really amazing. Like that's the thing which I really like about athletes, not giving up. And then like you did it at such a young age. It's really inspiring.
I think it's also because when you're put in the most toughest, like most awkward, not awkward, but like a very impossible, next to impossible kind of a situation. That's when like you feel like, okay, I want to do it right now. If not ever, like I want to do it now. I want to prove myself. That's what kind of drives me at times.
I know I'm going back to the funny memory part, but I had this really funny memory, which is like basically when I was in school, in preschool, we used to have these swimming camps. So it was from preschool to fourth grade, where it was one school, and they used to have these swimming camps every year. So I started going through these swimming camps back in nursery, and my funniest memory is because when we start swimming, all they did was they used to take us to these very shallow baby pools, and they used to give us these plastic cups. And what we used to do was we used to just fill in water and throw it on each other's heads. So I still remember back then as a kid, I used to just like, I used to tell my friends, come, I'll take you for a bath. Come, I'll take you for a bath. And we used to pour water on each other.
Too cute. That's so cute.
And that is like one memory. After that, we learned how to swim and all. But that is like one memory which is always in our heads. Like, come, I'll take you for a bath and all.
Yeah.
But I can swim, but I can't like swim really fast. Like, I'm just curious. This is how long do you hold your breath? How long do athletes hold their breath in water? Can you all hold it?
I mean, I do get this asked often, and I'm like, it's not about like how long can I hold for. I mean, it's about like breath control is very, very important, like being an athlete. But I'm a backstroker, so I don't really like, yes, I need to improve my lung capacity and all, that's fine. But like, I don't, freestylers, they kind of, like other strokes really needs, but backstrokers, I'm like, my face is up, so I don't really need that. But yeah.
Just one thing, I can hold my breath for like 1 minute. So, I mean, if this is a victory for me, I'll be more than happy. Is it longer than, how long can you hold your breath?
I've never tried actually. Honestly, I've never tried. So I guess that's amazing. 1 minute sounds amazing.
Okay, wow. So, right in my So yeah, that's like one achievement I think which I have over you. The only achievement in swimming, I would say, maybe. Even that we're not sure about, but it's really nice to know.
That's nice.
But I wanted to ask you, what is like your best advice, like your coaches gave you? Like, or best advices, you can give more than one.
I think the one which will stay with me forever is, this I also agree to this, as in, you athletes, everybody, they look after their body, everybody, like apart from athletes, yes, athletes have to be physically very, very strong. Okay. Other people also, they just want to be, they want to be fit, they want to look good and toned. But like all this while, they ignore their mental health, they ignore, strengthening their mind, like looking after their mind, their mental well-being. So yes, that's there. That's one part of it, but other is mentally, you have to have control over your mind, because mind being the captain of your body, once you align your body to your mind, you can do wonders. Like, it's all up here. If you put a limit to yourself, then that's as far as you can go. But otherwise, sky is the limit. Like, I don't think there's anything impossible ever. Like, you just need a lot of planning. You need to understand your body, and you need to keep telling your mind that yes, I can do it. So, when you align your body to your mind, you can do wonders. That's one thing that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life.
But two questions. How does one strengthen their mental capacity to, strengthen their willpower and all? And secondly, how do you think what's the role of persistence in it?
The role of
Persistence.
assistance.
Persistence.
Persistence.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So strengthening the mind, yes, it's not easy. It takes a lot of self-control, and it's very, very difficult. If you, one way you can achieve it is through meditation. Again, when you sit and meditate, if you're very fickle-minded, your mind will start wandering once you sit down. But another way is, you have to feel everything that you feel. You can't suppress any of the emotions. You can't suppress any of the feelings. Some days, if you're not doing okay, you can tell yourself it's okay not to be okay. You have to let your emotions flow, acknowledge every single thing that you feel. But yes, you can't let it affect you negatively. All this, you should take it up. I kind of talk to myself. I keep journaling really helps. When you pen down your feelings, when you let it out, when you organize, when you systematically channelize your emotions, that's when it really helps. And of course, experiences in life will also strengthen you. It will also make you really strong. And persistence, yes, it is the key. Like, persist, if you talk about persistence, grit, all these qualities, if you try and inculcate and you try and work for it, I think you're gonna get there. And otherwise also, like, if you think you need help, like, there's no harm in taking help from someone. If they can guide you, if they can help you understand your mind better, understand what's good for you, and also what is not good for you. That's sometimes even more important. To know that what you don't want, that is more important. So yeah, these are a few things that you can think about.
Yeah, so I was actually told the same advice that you gave me about knowing what you want and not knowing what you want. I was given like a very similar advice by another person on my podcast back long before, and he gave me this advice, which is you should constantly experiment and try different things so that you can at least know that what you don't want in life. So you're trying something, you're trying this field in science, and now you know that okay, you don't like science, so you don't want it. Or you're experimenting with this food, you don't like this item, so you're like, now you know that you don't want it. If you never try it, you will never know if you can like it or not. So that is one thing which he told me.
Exactly, that's very, very true. And also, I think it's very important to rule out certain things that you don't want, you don't need. There's again like a major difference in needs and wants, but in the end, you should know that okay, maybe some things, there are certain things that make you happy, but they're not good for you. Like, you have to understand that there are a lot of things in life which will make you happy, but again, like, having that, doing that may not be good for you. So again, you have to understand that, and then rule out what you don't want. That's very important. Like, you can want whatever you want in life, but first you need to understand what you don't want in life.
Correct. And yeah, I think what you spoke about was priorities. So like, how do you athletes set about, because you all have a very, very firm mindset, you all prioritize your practice every day. How do you all like
Yeah.
do that and force yourself to prioritize this? And what is the process like?
It's again, it's about something that I know, like, this is what I am right now. Like, I'm not going to be a swimmer all the time. There will be a point where I'll have to retire. So this is my time to swim. So right now, like, I can't say, okay, I'm going to take a break now and I'm going to do this workout 4 days later. It's not going to help me. What I need to do is what I need to do right now. Everything else can take a hike and, can come. I mean, unless it's life or death, anything else can come later on. So I think first you need to understand priorities. Again, that's when, everything in life has its own time. It looks good, it feels good when it happens at its own pace, at its own time. So that's when you actually, sorry, that's when you actually, realize. And yes, it's very difficult sometimes, the pull of the outer world, that, I want to do this, maybe I want to skip my practice and do this. But then again, yes, you come back, you should know what you're supposed to do. And whenever you have a holiday, when you have an off session, maybe do that thing later on, go watch a movie on your off day, something like that. Set your priorities straight.
But I wanted to ask you this, which was like, how do you all like socialize? Like, okay, so you all spend most of your time in practice. So like, does it like feel weird when you all socialize, or like what happens when you all socialize, or how do you all get into that different frame of mindset? Because when you all are practicing, you all are just like put in effort, time, work. When you all come out into doing something else, which is more free, which is light work and all, how do you like shift your mindset to that something?
So, my social life is pretty much non-existent. I'm not going to talk about other athletes here. I'll just speak about myself. Like, some people, like, there are athletes who are like, who may be different from me. I'm different, but I'm just going to talk about myself here. Like, yes, I've spent like all my childhood, I've only been at the pool, and I still consider pool is my safe place. It's my happy place, and I feel that I belong there. And I suffer from social anxiety. I do get really awkward when I'm in a social setting. For example, if I've only been clubbing twice in my life, and it was very, very awkward for me. Like, I like dressing up. I like to listen. I like listening to good music. I like dressing up, but I don't know how to behave when there are too many people around talking about something normal. Not talking about sport or anything that makes sense. So sometimes I feel like I don't do fun. You know, all my life I think I need someone sensible to talk to. I need to talk to someone who's smart, who's intelligent. Like, if people are not making sense, I'll be like, what's wrong with you? That's my problem. Like, that's my fault. Like, I need to develop a skill outside of the pool. Like, I should be able to go and talk to people. I should be able to go and socialize people, and that's one skill that I haven't been able to develop because of my swimming career. Yes, I can go to a seminar. I can openly take a session. I can talk about mental health, motivation, swimming, anything related to sports, or something that makes sense. But like, going out, having fun, dancing, even if I want to, I really want to, but I can't, because that's one skill that I have not developed over these years. It's going to take time. Now I'm understanding, this is like, athlete is a part of me, but there is another part of me which is a human. I've not really nurtured it, and which is very wrong. So it's very important to find a balance, and it's very important to develop certain skills as well. You know, humans are social animals again at the end of the day.
No, I think you will be able to like develop it, because like even when I had a conversation on call with you, I think it is really smart. It's really nice to talk to you. So like you are like someone who people can interact with. Like you're very approachable, I would say. So like maybe like you said, you may need to like once you open up yourself, maybe I feel you will be, because you are approachable, like I said before. So then it won't be an
Yeah.
issue. But yeah, I think you're getting there. Hope.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm fine. Like, I don't think I can make a conversation with someone, but if someone comes and talks to me, I'll be very nice. I'll talk. But I just can't make the first move, and that's something that I need to work on. So yeah, I'm working on it.
That hopefully that'll happen. There's like a method for like starting conversations and building trust. So over the years I've realized this, that if you want to build trust with someone very very quickly, you give them a part of yourself. So you tell them a secret about yourself or something, and what happens is that person thinks that, okay, this person feels comfortable opening up to me, then maybe even I should open up to them. And that is how it builds trust on a very fast level, I feel. And it has worked for me, like, I feel. So I think you
But
can
I
try
mean,
something like that.
I I mean, I don't think that's a very good advice. Like, building trust is something that can't happen overnight. I mean, I wouldn't like want you to get into trouble. Like, yes, you can open yourself up to someone, but you wouldn't want that someone to mess up with you, if they know anything about your secrets. Take your time to know people. There's no hurry, is all I'm saying. Like, building trust is something that happens, over a period of time. It can't there's no shortcut to trusting someone. Like, all my life, even with coaches and all, like, I take my time to confide in them. I take my time to trust them. Like, I don't open up very easily. It takes time. I can't just let a part of me out that way. That's just me. Again, like, if I gel with someone, if I really connect with someone, yes, I will, but like, not like this. It takes time.
No, but something like you said actually happened with me. So I told someone one of my secrets, and then I think it was too soon, and then that secret got out to every other people also. So like, yeah, like you said, that is also there. So that I need to be cautious about, but it still helps. It's like fast. I feel I don't know. I'm very open about a lot of things in my life, like most of the things in my life. So for me, it does maybe not matter so much. For you, like you said, you're a very private person, so it would be a completely different effect. Okay.
Yeah, again, like you should be okay if there's something like a part, if secret of yours is out, then you should be okay handling the repercussions. Like, you should be okay with people talking to you. If you're not okay, you might as well keep it a secret. So maybe you're someone who's okay, when it's out. It's not like too much of a big deal, I'm assuming. Like, I'd be like, okay, I don't want a lot of people to know about my personal life, or anything that I don't want to tell them. So, something.
But I wanted to know this, like, what motivates you to continue every day?
As in, sorry, your voice was breaking.
Yeah, I was asking you what motivates you to continue swimming and practicing every day and working ahead.
Um, so when I was injured, so till 2017, every single day I was just like, your swimming is my passion and I belong here and I really love it. And I love training. I love racing. So the drive, the high that I get from racing, winning, kept me going, But there came a downtime, when I was injured, I was asked to stay away from the pool, and I scratched from a lot of competitions. So that's when I was like, what am I doing? If I'm a swimmer, I have to train. If suddenly, the identity crisis started kicking in, and I'm like, how am I supposed to deal with this? But there was a time when I really wanted to retire because I wasn't training and I had my doubts. Then my mom took me for a movie, because how the national anthem is played before the movie begins. That's when I told my mom, the national anthem and the tricolor doesn't let me quit. That's the only thing that doesn't let me quit ever. So I still want to win a gold medal for the country, listen to the anthem, stand on the top of the podium and see the Indian flag go up. So once that dream is fulfilled, maybe then I will hang my suit and retire. So till then, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, already you've done so much, and I am really hoping this is going to be like a big thing to watch your journey coming ahead, because you're so young right now and there's so much left for you ahead. And I'm definitely sure that's going to happen. And when that happens, I'll be like very excited and waving the flag.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you this question. We're coming towards the end, but this was like, what do you think are the biggest challenges with athletes face nowadays?
Biggest challenge. I think it's very. It depends on athlete to athlete. Like, again, I would just because if you look at overall, then I would just say people should be a little more sensitive towards the well-being of an athlete. Winning and all is part and parcel. It happens. You lose some, you win some, but in the end, I think everyone should be very supportive of the athlete's well-being, the mental health. It's very, very, everybody thinks that athletes are like modern day warriors, who they have to be mentally tough and they can overcome any hurdle. Yes, you have to be mentally very, very tough to survive, but at the end of the day, we are human beings too. Like, people don't understand that, yeah, we can achieve anything that we want. We'll physically work. That's very true again. But then, there are athletes. We always have two lives. One is the athlete life, dealing with training, performing, other issues that that involve all these, that involve sports. That's another life. Then the other life is the normal life. Sometimes it's very non-existent, but sometimes it's still there. the stressors of the normal life. So there's so much that you have to deal with. There's so much on the plate. So sometimes I think the athlete kind of really gets crushed, kind of gets bogged down. So I think people should be more sensitive towards the well-being of an athlete these days. Like if you've heard about the Naomi Osaka case, Simone Biles. So being sensitive, it's not like, being sensitive is not a sign of weakness. A lot of people mistake that if you're too emotional, that is you're weak. That's not right. You're just understanding your emotions. You're letting your emotions flow. Yes, but if you let those emotions affect you, that's when you're weak. That's when you're not able to handle. You're not able to channelize your emotions. That's called weakness. But being emotional, being sensitive is not weak. So I think, yeah, looking after the well-being is very, very important, and the ecosystem around the athlete should understand this point.
Yeah, it's been happening a lot. Even in our country, we see it a lot where if some athlete doesn't perform well, then we blame it on their family members. I'm not sure. I think last year some an IPL player wasn't performing well. He left IPL, I think, for the that season or something, and his family members were like attacked and all. So I think that is very unfair. So I think
Yeah,
that definitely needs to change, I feel.
exactly. Like if an athlete doesn't perform, then people start attacking their family. People start attacking the athlete's personal life. Okay, he's not performing because of this reason. I mean, how do you know? Like, it's the athlete who's going out there performing. He knows what's happening. He knows he's performing. He knows his body more than anybody else out there. So instead of making judgments, instead of just beating the athlete up, you rather ask the athlete, are you okay? After a bad performance, yes, even he wants to know what went wrong. Even he wants to sit and analyze his performance, what happened. People also want to know. Like, but people are like, array, they'll start criticizing. There is a way to criticize. Okay, people can talk, people will criticize, and it's very normal. But you should just once, the ecosystem should just once ask him, are you okay? And then maybe sit and analyze. It's not the end of the world, right? So that's one thing that needs to be worked on.
Yeah, and what's the reason behind it? So a lot of people, most people, and I've noticed this is, in fact, I was having a conversation with my friend about this. A lot of people react rather than express themselves. If they have some issue with it, they will instantly react versus telling what's the problem. Like if they feel the athlete isn't performing well, maybe they should rather express it in a very respectful way that we didn't like the way you performed or something. Could you tell us what's wrong? Or like you said, ask them if about their well-being. Are they feeling okay? Are they feeling or not? Versus most people just go and react saying that, oh, maybe he was like a one-time luck stroke, or maybe he's not performing well because of this and that and all, like you said.
I mean, the athlete does not want, I mean, if he's out there, if he's, be it like the, very, very low level competition, but even if he's at, performing at the most highest, at the biggest pinnacle of sport, of course, he's not fooling around. Of course, he wants to be at his best. Of course, he wants to put up the best show ever. I mean, if something goes wrong, you don't have to just, like, oh, what, he's a bad athlete, he's not performing well, he doesn't have it in him anymore. You have to understand, you have to, there's a way, this athlete also wants to know what went wrong. So there's a way to talk, there's a way to carry out certain things.
Yeah, I really hope that changes in the coming years for our future generations to come. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to ask you this. What is your last advice for anyone who is watching or listening to this podcast?
um yeah, the last advice is, people, COVID and all, last year was a very crucial year for everyone. It's very good to see that people started looking after their body, started looking after their health, started eating clean, started working out at home. I just want to tell everyone that the way you look after your body, I think you should start looking after your well-being as well. Yes, start looking after your mind as well. It's equally important, and I'd say rather even more important. If you're gonna be happy, then if you're gonna be happy, then everything else around you is gonna be happy. It's gonna be better. It's like world will be a better place. That's one thing, and yeah, like other people should just focus on well-being also, and mentally getting stronger, tougher. Work on those points maybe.
Thank you so much for being a part, Mana. I personally had an amazing time talking with you, and I'm pretty sure all my audience and I really look forward to like seeing you win gold medals for India. And everyone's already proud of you, and I'm really excited for your journey to come.
Thank you so much, Ayush. You're a smart kid and keep up the good work. It was amazing. It was lovely talking to you.